Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to a really interesting gentleman tonight, Ken Tencer. He is CEO, entrepreneur, best-selling author, and director, serving on multiple boards. He's recognized internationally as a business and innovation thought leader who helps organizations, investors, and business families bring their ideas to market faster and continuously. A lifelong learner, Ken is pursuing a Doctor of Business Administration focused on human ingenuity, innovation, and intrapreneurship as drivers of sustainable business growth. Ken is the CEO of Spyder, a leading business consultancy for mid-market organizations seeking to drive sustainable growth. He is also the curator and creator of Say Hi to the Future, a platform aimed at highlighting the human side of human ingenuity, clever, inventive, and original thinking. Ken is the author of 2 books on innovation, The 90% Rule and the bestseller, Cause a Disturbance, both avidly read by business leaders in the US, Canada, and Europe. He's working on this highly anticipated 3rd book, Never Be Satisfied, focused on corporate entrepreneurship, also known as intrapreneurship. Ken, how are you? Welcome to my show.
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. So you say that you're going to be doing a DBA. Tell me about that.
Well, I am. I'm about a third of the way to half of the way through right now. As you said, lifelong learner. You know, there's 4 sort of values I live my life by, and run the company by. Passion, integrity, resilience, and my favorite one, which is savage curiosity.
Savage curiosity.
Savage curiosity.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's not just getting up in the morning and thinking, oh, maybe this would be fun or different. It's really something I've challenged myself to do my whole life, and that was to learn or to see or to hear or to feel things in a different way. And it's funny, I always wanted to do my doctorate. I've been an entrepreneur for about 28 out of the 35 years of my career. But when I did my master's, well, decades ago now, I had an incredible professor who was head of a private equity firm in Europe. And I was studying over in Brussels at the time. And I took his class at night because he just gave us, both theoretical and pragmatic advice. And I said, man, if I ever have the opportunity to give back and to teach at some point in my life, I'd love to do the doctorate. I'd love to work with, students, at the graduate level who are really focused. And that's what I'm doing now. I mean, on top of, the work at Spyder, it's doing the doctorate and starting to teach some pretty interesting classes.
Fantastic. Now you're studying human ingenuity, innovation, and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's a mouthful, but they actually are, they work together very well. So firstly, just to give you kudos, and we talked a little bit about it off air. I mean, you were the one who inspired me to go to ISM, the International School of Management between Paris and New York. And, when I was looking for the executive streams of doctorate, and it's been an incredible experience. And one of my first courses was on artificial versus emotional or human intelligence. And I remember, the conversation in the class was, the more we get automated, the more there's VR or AR, et cetera, AI, we're going to be out of work. We're going to have nothing to do. And as an entrepreneur, I sit silently for a little while, but then in my head, I'm going, okay. And I said it out loud. I said, you know what? If you really don't like technology, just turn it off. We created it. We can uncreate it. We can pull the plug. We don't need it. And then the quiet part of me and my inner voice said to myself, and if you really want to turn off technology at the same time, just pull the wheels off your car, get some friends to grab the axles. The Romans did it. We can do it too. And it was from that point on that I really started thinking about, okay, what is the divide between artificial intelligence and human intelligence? And I started looking at it at 4 different levels. And there's binary intelligence, which computers are very good at, very quick zeros and ones. There's cognitive, where you get a little bit of reasoning. I like the color red, so I'm probably going to like the red Skittles more. There's emotional intelligence, which is, talked about hugely now, about empathy and understanding and working with people. And then there's what I would call, or what's been called gut intelligence. And that is, that feeling in your gut, which is a very real feeling that you've been here before, the answer, something feels right, something doesn't feel right. And the top two, especially the emotional intelligence, the gut intelligence, right now, these are things that humans are capable of. And by and large, they're not really being touched yet by artificial intelligence. And that's what said to me, okay, how do we help people think better? How do we help people think better together to solve business problems and social problems alike?
And this is what your research is at ISM for the DBA?
Yeah, it is. And we're just starting into it. But, the first two books, the first one was, they're all around innovation. And why I say innovation, entrepreneurship and ingenuity are sort of melded together is this. I mean, innovation is about the thing. It's about having an idea and bringing it to market. Ingenuity is the process, as you said off the top, the clever, the inventive, the original thinking that drives innovation. And entrepreneurship is simply one form of innovation, and it's the human-centric kind. And what I mean by that is when you think about innovation, there's the large projects that we're used to going through the innovation departments, fully stage-gated over a number of years. There's open innovation where we, work with, collaborate with other firms or people. There's innovation through acquisition where we see a hole in our portfolio and we buy a company. And now there's entrepreneurship, which is human-centric, which basically says, hey, two heads are better than one, but in some companies we have 100, 1,000, 100,000 employees. Aren't their heads worth tapping into as well? So entrepreneurship is finding a way to tap into the understanding, the thoughts, the insights of your whole team or company.
Sounds fascinating. Sounds like a great experience that you're having. And ISM, International School of Management, you said is in Paris and in New York?
Paris, New York, and they're sort of outpost courses, if you will, in South America, Singapore, and South Africa. So I'm, unfortunately, and this is, the least of anyone's worries over the last 18 months, I haven't been able to meet people in person for obvious reasons, but over Zoom, we've had some really wonderful discussions, with people in Dubai and Nigeria and Singapore, here in Canada, the US. And I really look forward to meeting these people in person, hopefully, the first of next year.
What a great experience. We're chatting tonight with Ken Tencer. He is the CEO, entrepreneur, best-selling author, and director of an interesting company called Spyder. And we're going to come back in a minute and ask him a little bit about that. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Ken Tencer. He's an interesting guy because not only has been an entrepreneur for numerous years, I guess 2 decades plus, Ken, but you've also decided to go back and do a doctorate in business, and you're studying human ingenuity, innovation, and intrapreneurship. Sounds fascinating. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you're CEO of Spyder, a business consultancy for mid-market organizations. Tell me about Spyder. What do you do?
Well, we're a growth strategy firm. We work with mid-market companies who are at, say, a certain level of sales, and they're looking to grow and understand, what their opportunities to grow, to be innovative, to practice ingenuity and entrepreneurship are. And we're actually coming into very close to our 30th year in business. I've been here 17 years of it. And we focus on mid-market for a very specific reason. First, early in my career, I founded a manufacturing firm that I eventually sold. And at that time, it was in the mid-market, as defined by the banks about 20, 30 years ago. And the funny thing about it is, there's a lot of help for very large companies. There's a lot of help for one-off entrepreneurs, incubators, startup help. But those companies that are sort of in that 50, 100, up to $500 million, or looking to grow into that range, they're really, in my estimation, there isn't a company that was formed to focus directly on it. And I say that because of my own experience. When I was growing, again, my manufacturing company into a mid-market firm, and no knock at all, but I had some very large consultancies who wanted to help me. But I'll be honest, they didn't have, at least at that time, and they didn't have the entrepreneurial background and understanding of my mindset and the challenges of getting a company from 0 to X million and then 2 or 3X. And on the other side, there was a lot of single shingles who, again, brilliant people, great role in the consulting world, but they didn't necessarily have the breadth and depth to work with a mid-market company. So when we fashioned SpyderWorks, and especially over my 15 to 17 years, I said, what does mid-market need? And mid-market needs some help on thinking, because they don't have 100 or 500 or 1,000 VPs or strategy departments or even huge innovation departments. So they need help with thinking, but they also need a lot of help or support on commercializing. Because again, think about it. If you raise money, if you borrow money, if you go in a new direction, you have a finite set of human capital within a mid-market company. And all of a sudden you have this inflow of financial capital. What do you do? How do you execute on the thinking? So we really are a think and do and also a monitor company. So we help you think about the idea, we help you commercialize it, and we help you monitor that success and help make fine-tune, to fine-tune what you're doing. So again, that's what mid-market is about. It's about adding a little bit of resource. And that's what we believe over the last 30 years and multiple countries and continents now, we've been able to help our clients succeed at.
Your tagline is say hi to the future. What do you mean by that?
Well, say hi to the future is one of our programs. Our actual tagline for the company is small steps, epic journey. And small steps, epic journey really says that you need, no matter how big you're thinking, you need to think through all of the different steps that you'll be taking, the human, financial, technology, all the different forms of capital that you will need to make something happen. And when you take those small steps properly, and they can be very quick or quickly, if you will, it turns into an epic journey. It turns into something over 2, 3, 5, 10 years that you look back and you say, wow, that is an incredible success story. And obviously you celebrate before 5 years, but you gotta identify and celebrate those small steps, and you absolutely have to take the time to embrace the journey with your team and with the market.
What are those different forms of capital that you need to have to be successful?
Well, I think the first one today is the human capital. One of the things that leads to entrepreneurship, or again, tapping into the many in your company, is the fact that the world is changing so quickly, and we just can't do it alone anymore. And I graduated, to date myself, I think my undergrad was 35 years ago, obviously pre-internet, pre a lot of things. And at that time, you had an idea and you brought a new product to market every year, every 2, every 3 years. Your product life cycles were much longer. Today, product life cycles are what? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And so I think that human capital is absolutely critical. You need to feed the pipeline. You need to be thinking in new and different ways. And no, one head is not going to cut it.
Okay, what about financial capital, physical capital?
Absolutely, Brian. And I think, what I've always found is a great plan can find money. And, great ideas can find money. And I think that again, if you think it through, if you identify the opportunity, if you identify the steps, if you are very honest and open about the watch outs or the areas that you got to dig a little deeper in, yeah, you need financial capital, but it should come, and then technology, physical capital, whether it's buildings or whatnot, that comes along too. But without the right thinking, you're a no-go.
Some people think you need social capital as well. What do you think?
I think so as well today. It's funny how so many of our clients today, the customers, the companies that we work with, there's a much deeper purpose. There's a much deeper understanding about why we're in business, how we're helping people, who we're helping. And by extension, there are so many companies who are looking to galvanize their teams around purpose, whether it's internal, external, partnering with a foundation. So yeah, I think it's critical. And it's funny, people knock millennials quite a bit and Gen Z. And I have 3 kids in my early 20s, and I just embrace those generations. They see things that we just don't. They were brought up with the ability to communicate, to speak, to work with people anywhere in the world, any time of day, and talk and think about any subject they want. And so they have this sense of purpose when they get out of college or university or high school. And I think it's just wrong to not harness that sense of purpose and sense of social well-being.
You're the author of the book, The 90% Rule. What is the 90% rule?
Well, 90% rule is pretty simple. It's, as I say, it's a philosophy. It's not a formula. And it came from, quite honestly, from my manufacturing days. I would sit down at the end of the year and figure out what we were 90% capable of, meaning, I knew I had to grow. I knew I had to get into new markets, but I didn't want to put the company at risk. So I sat down with my partner and we looked at, our formulations, our intellectual property, our physical capital, our inventory, and all the markets that we were in and things that we were doing that we're really good or great at. And so that base I call the 90%. Then I told myself, and I tell companies today, push that aside and ask the really important question, what's the next 10%? What are the things that we can do differently, new, better, to grow our company, to satisfy our customers or new customers? And it's such a simple concept, but when you think about it, it does not allow complacency to become part of our company, because we're always thinking about the next 10%. The other thing too is, with innovation, a lot of people get afraid. Is it big? Does it have to be huge? Does it have to be a home run every time? Absolutely not. It has to be new and different. And by saying 10%, it gives us the permission to think about small incremental change as well as very large disruptive change. And I'll give you an example of one small change working with one of our customers, probably about 10, 15 years ago. They were having communication problems. And it's, when you think about emails, CCing and blind copying and how many dozens or hundreds that we have to read that we probably don't. And we started thinking about how they communicate in person, how they put their desks together, don't put their desks together, how they talk and work in teams, and where those teams should be located. And that cut down the need for so many emails because there was better interaction. Then we took another step forward and said, okay, who really needs to be on each email? Who's part of each process? Who is mission critical to read this? And that brought down the amount of communication. So in 2 very simple steps, how we communicate physically in space and how we communicate through technology, we freed up a lot of time, which went to work on other projects and opportunities.
Gosh, if you could help me reduce all my emails, I'd be so happy. Getting rid of email noise has got to be one of the biggest objectives I've got. One of your other books, your second book, was Causative Disturbance. Why are you wanting to cause a disturbance? What's that's all about?
Well, the first one, the 90% rule, again, it's about the formula or the process. Cause a disturbance was taking that formula or process and learning how to put it to work in the market. And again, disturbance, disruption, new, it starts to explain to people how to look at the categories of innovation, again, from the simple to the disruptive. It also borrows from a matrix from the 50s, Ansough's matrix, which actually starts to help people look at innovation management or innovation portfolios the way you would as a stock portfolio. Some are near-term investments, some are long-term investments, some are lower risk, some are higher risk. And when you take those four quadrants, you take the ideas that you've developed and you start plotting them. And you can take a step back and say, do I have a well-balanced portfolio for my innovation or for the innovation within my company? If everything is short-term and low risk, well, you're not looking hard enough down at the future. If everything's 3 to 5 years out and costs $1 million, $1 billion, whatever that large number is, well, you know what? You need some short and near-term and midterm opportunities. So very simple explanations in that book, but I think it's been very eye-opening because it lets people get a grasp of innovation and innovation portfolio management very quickly.
That sounds fascinating. I think you've got a management of science in business in your master's of science in your business background. So I would expect that you've got a reasonably quantitative background as well. How do you reconcile net present value and discount rates with this desire to have low risk near-term opportunities as well as high risk long-term opportunities?
Well, I think that question speaks to exactly why you need that portfolio. Because obviously the further you go out, understanding net present value, calculating and risk, calculating and change, especially at a time where change is rampant and change and pandemics. I mean, there's just so many things today that we cannot foresee, and in my mind, quantify well enough. So that's why we need to be, again, small steps, epic journey. We need some small, mid, and longer term opportunities because, it's really tough. These 3 and 5 year plans, it's good to have them. I don't put a lot of stock in years 4 and 5.
Small steps, epic journey. What a line. I like it. We're chatting tonight with Ken Tencer. He is the CEO of Spyder. He's the author of 2 books and a third one that's going to be coming out soon called Never Be Satisfied. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Ken and talk about this third book in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're talking about business. We're talking about innovation. We're talking about ingenuity and entrepreneurship with Ken Tencer. He's the CEO, entrepreneur, director, and CEO of Spyder. And he's also an author. He's, as we've talked about, been the author already of 2 books, The 90% Rule and Cause a Disturbance. But he's now writing a third book called Never Be Satisfied, which focuses on corporate entrepreneurship, and I guess what you called it is entrepreneurship. Tell me, what's the difference between entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship?
Well, the basic difference is ownership. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I have my own company. I take my own risks. I decide what I'm going to bring to the market, within my own company. Entrepreneurship is enabling and empowering individuals within a larger company, a mid to large size company, private or public, to come up with new ideas that they themselves can bring to market within the corporate structure.
So being an entrepreneur, but within the company.
Yeah, it is that. But what I'll say is, and the reason that I speak to entrepreneurship and not corporate entrepreneurship is that there are differences, and again, not good or bad, but there are very differences. I mean, as an entrepreneur, as crazy as we may be, we take a leap of faith. We leave the company we're working for. We have the audacity that we can believe we can do it better on our own dime. And, we have a certain, we're just going to break through any wall and zigzag at the beginning to anything we need to get it done. Entrepreneurship lives within a company. And I think it's really important to understand that entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship needs to feed off of that main company. That the reason to do it within the larger company is because they have certain processes, they have certain human capital, financial, intellectual capital that can be lent to the project. And that's very different because it provides, again, a different capital flow, a different potential for capitalization at the outside of a project. And it provides a natural mentoring, if done properly, for the entrepreneur. Because within the large company, you can have the sponsor of the project, you have the mentor who will be a senior manager or part of senior management who acts as a conduit to the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the one who has to get that project or that new division or idea started, but they have the conduit back to the larger company or the mothership, if you will. And that's something that you really want to understand and leverage in your process.
Sounds like social capital in a corporation.
Well, in a lot of ways it is, yes. Again, social capital, but the end result, there's some great social applications, foundational development or foundations developed out of entrepreneurship, but there are also some incredible, opportunities to look and explore new markets, business-wise with it.
What are the tools that this book has? It's this mentor-mentee type of relationship that's the key of the tool from the book?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that I note in the book is that entrepreneurship can be a solo sport. One of us, I can decide to go out and start a company and do it on my own, and there's plenty of people who do that. Entrepreneurship is not. It's a team sport, and again, you need that buy-in from the top level. You need that mentor. You need that entrepreneur, and be it the book or the sessions that we run, it's actually a dual process. So we teach the mentor how to be a good mentor, what it takes, what the mindset is, the type of knowledge they need to be imparting, the relationship they need to build between the entrepreneur and the heart of the corporation. So that's sort of one part of the education. On the other side, we have a stream for the entrepreneur. What does it take to start a company? What does it take to build a team? What does it take to build a plan? And after we get those basics done, it sort of comes together where we have the mentors and the entrepreneurs working together. And we flip roles so they get an appreciation or an empathy for the other person's role and understanding.
Is that what you call the Ingenuity Pyramid?
Well, the Ingenuity Pyramid, innovation, again, it's about the things we bring to market. And Ingenuity Pyramid, again, goes to how we think. And ingenuity, again, about the clever, inventive, original thinking that underlies innovation, that underlies or drives that object to market. And by bringing, we have a multi-step process. By bringing the process into the company, you are engaging people, you are unleashing the ingenuity, the clever thinking, but you're doing it in a very focused, process-driven way that innovation needs to flourish, to bring something to market.
Process and sort of structure is not something that I've thought about in regards to ingenuity. I would have thought ingenuity is, Google is renowned for having a slide. So ingenuity doesn't come from sort of free-form thinking?
It is, and that's part of the process in the sense that, so let's take a step back. The first thing you need to do to be, a great entrepreneur or a leader of entrepreneurs is to look at yourself in the mirror. I was taught, and again, I'm going back decades ago, when I was coming out of, my first business degree undergrad, one foot in front of the other, shut your mouth, and in 30 years, you're going to get a gold watch. And that obviously doesn't
Exist today.
Yeah, it doesn't exist today, and it shouldn't. So unleashing ingenuity is really throwing that old paradigm out. But the first thing that I had to do to understand it and help companies is learn to throw that paradigm out. Learn that what I learned is no longer valid. Learn that, again, what the millennials are doing by speaking with people around the world, by having the creativity and free flow of ideas, that unleashing that ingenuity is actually a process. And why I say that is you can be creative through it, each of the steps in bringing something to market, but you also need to be very finite and understand where you are. There has to be a time where you say, okay, this is the idea that we're going with. This is our hypothesis. It can change. It can be adapted. It can pivot. It can do all those great things as it goes to market. But if all we are is free flowing and creative, how do you get something into a box, on the shelf, and out to market? So that's really the tough thing about innovation and innovation management, because people think about innovation or innovation management as being one word, or innovation culture being one word, but it's not. It's bringing together the process-driven steps of innovation with these sort of esoteric parts of thinking, of ingenuity, of culture. And that's what we meld together in this book, an understanding of what innovation is, what free flow thinking is, what good culture is, and how to bring them together so that you don't inhibit thinking, but you do say, okay, now it's time to go to step 2 or 3 or 4.
Tell me a little bit about Say Hi to the Future.
Well, Say Hi to the Future, again, it came out of one of my doctoral classes. We were talking about artificial intelligence, emotional intelligence, and I came up with a pyramid that again goes from, it's binary, cognitive, emotional, and gut thinking or gut intelligence. And I focused in on, what made us, ingenious or separate ourselves, human from artificial intelligence. And it really was the ability to feel empathy and to feel through our gut. And I came back and I said, you know what? I'm just going to start writing ideas and interviewing and speaking to people about anything that I find interesting, anything that I find out of the ordinary or extraordinary. And all of a sudden, Say Hi to the Future, Hi Being Human Ingenuity, became written, it became a podcast, it became a segment on radio, and it's soon to be a conference starting at the Columbus College of Art and Design in November in Columbus, Ohio. And again, to your point of we need to be creative and free flowing and thinking, that's truly what I was. And I remember saying to everybody in the company, I'm not going to there's no edit box on this. I'm just going to throw ideas out and speak to people who we believe are changing the world through ingenious thinking. And it's obviously caught on as a platform.
And I went to your Instagram page and you've got really some fascinating episodes, the future of learning and other topics. How did you get into this?
Well, again, it was what did we find interesting? The future of learning specifically, I was speaking to Tom Gaddis. He's a dean of undergrad studies at the Columbus College of Art and Design. And Tom and I have known each other for about 12 years. So the first book came out. And one of the things that I said was, how do you teach somebody in a finite amount of time like college or university and expect them to actually be ready for the real world because the real world is changing so quickly. And I gave the example to him. I said, medical knowledge, I think it was is doubling like every 73 days right now, which means that by the time a first year med student gets to the end of their first term, the knowledge in the world has doubled. So I think we need to start thinking about learning as continuous. And yes, we have continuing ed and executive ed and all these things, but these aren't nice to haves anymore. These are absolute requirements. And in our own company, I insist, it's one of our principles, it's one of our values that, again, savage curiosity. We need to be learning something new every year. I took it pretty far by doing the doctorate, but people are free to take whatever it is that stimulates them. And one course was actually a pottery class, and people were saying, Ken, that's crazy. Why don't you, you're paying for it. Why don't you just pay for things that are going to help your company? And I said, but it will, because that person is learning. There's new tactile experiences. There's new, how do things, hold together, stand up, shape. And if people are stimulated in what they're learning, whether it's pottery or a doctorate, they're going to bring that back to the company. They're going to bring that back to the team, the enthusiasm, the excitement. And I think that's important today. There's no such thing, to me at least, of this is the only learning we're going to pay for because nothing else is relevant to the company. Anything that incites and excites, engages, empowers people, that's critical to your team and to your clients' teams.
We're chatting tonight with Ken Tencer. He is the CEO of Spyder. He's an entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a director, and he's a really interesting guy. We're going to take a break for some final messages and then come back for some concluding comments from Ken in just a minute. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio while we're on Saga 960. We're having an interesting chat tonight about ingenuity and innovation with Ken Tencer, who is the CEO of Spyder. He's an author. He's written 2 books. He's writing a 3rd book. And he has got some interesting ideas in regards to corporate entrepreneurship, which is different than entrepreneurship. He's got a concept of a pyramid, I guess, where you need to have mentors and mentees and working together, and a process of bringing innovation into a company. Otherwise, I guess, can you think that innovation is going to be stifled or something? So that's really kind of interesting. His books are The 90% Rule and Cause a Disturbance. Can one buy those books on your website or on Amazon, or where do they go to get them?
Amazon, wherever you go online to buy books, they're out there. And
your 3rd book, Never Be Satisfied, when's that going to be published?
I'm looking at about Q1 of next year. It's essentially done, but I'll be honest, I usually do a lot of speaking and a lot of live work to support books, so I'm kind of watching the world before I give an exact date.
Now, you got an event coming up that it frankly looks really interesting in Columbus, Ohio. However, I really wonder why we can't do it here in Mississauga or Toronto. Tell me a little bit about the event.
Well, it comes off of Say Hi to the Future, which is, again, high is human ingenuity. So it's about clever, innovative, and original thinking. The event is called Say Hi Columbus, and we're calling on some great, human ingenuists, if that's a word, to join us down there. So it's really a journey in a day, because we're talking about ingenuity. We're going to talk about innovation. We're going to talk about how people think, how people work with AI and VR, how we can be better teammates with technology going forward. And once that sort of sets the foundation for the day, because that is sort of the future of business and the future of working, us alongside incredible technology, we're going to look at the future of learning, because we are going to have to learn differently within our companies and apply it differently. And one of the speakers, one of the topics is actually going to be something called Jugad, which is a concept of frugal innovation, which I think most entrepreneurs—
Frugal innovation.
Yeah, most entrepreneurs, I think, know well. So we'll go from learning into frugal innovation, and we're going to have a number of some of the local incubated companies come out and talk about how they got up and going. And in the afternoon, we're going to put what we learned to 4 or 5 different streams and learn how to ideate. Because again, as we said throughout—
Ideate? What the heck is ideate?
Ideate, come up with ideas, solve problems. Again, innovation is about commercializing the physical product, and ingenuity is the clever, it's the thinking that brings it to market. So we're gonna take a look at that in the afternoon, how we do it, not just for business, but for social, for cause related, for foundations. Our great thinking, whether we do it for our business or within our business for greater causes, human ingenuity applies to all. And as you said, we're starting down in the US, in Columbus, had a great long-term relationship with our dean, and would love to have it right here in Mississauga. I am the chair of the Mississauga Board of Trade. So if everybody's listening, there's some brilliant companies here. And when things open up in 2022, I would love to have Say Hi Mississauga right in this backyard.
Ken, Columbus doesn't seem to me, at least, I wouldn't have thought of it as a center of innovation. Why there?
Columbus is actually an incredible city, and there's actually a lot of incredible companies that are headquartered there. But I think, we don't always think about it, but if you think of Ohio, how close it is to Cincinnati, headquarter of P&G, and Dayton and Cleveland, and not all that far actually, obviously in Cincinnati, and close, not too far from Chicago. There's some brilliant thinkers, brilliant design thinkers in the Midwest. We're always thinking about Silicon Valley. We're always thinking about Boston. Brilliant thinkers there, brilliant Fortune 500 companies, as well as startup and incubated companies. So yeah, it's a great place to have it, and super supportive of what we're doing.
You said that you're chair of the Mississauga Board of Trade. Do you think Mississauga has the potential to be an innovative community?
I think it does. I mean, I'll say is, 27 years as an entrepreneur, my businesses have always been headquartered here. Even with this one, we have offices in the US and an outpost in Paris because, through ISM. But, we've got an incredible city, obviously, first with Mayor McCallion and now Mayor Crombie. We are very business focused. I think that we are carving out a wonderful niche for business relative to, the financial institutions in Toronto, our big city just east of us, and some of the other service and, institutional hub that city is. But when you look at the businesses that we have here, and you look at what Merge has done, Mississauga Economic Recovery Group, through MBOT, spearheaded by Dave Wojcik, our CEO, and Ellen McGregor, former chair of MBOT, and of course, CEO Fielding. We have some incredible companies, incredible thinkers. We just need to harness that. And again, Say Hi Mississauga would be a wonderful platform to build it around.
When I think of innovation, I often think of incubators and accelerators. Toronto's got Mars. Hamilton's got the Hamilton Innovation Factory. Kitchener-Waterloo has got Communitech and the Waterloo Accelerator. Why doesn't Mississauga, and maybe sponsored by MBOT, have a comparable kind of accelerator or incubator here?
Well, I think that there are some great ones here through UTM and through Sheridan. I do believe that we could have a stronger focal point if they came together. Also, the Rick Center is obviously very active throughout Ontario, but in Mississauga. Yeah, I do believe we could use a hub. I do believe, again, collaborative thinking or human ingenuity could pull together all the great thinkers. I don't know if they have to be under one roof by any means, but yeah, a good strong link, and a link back to something that harnesses it. Like, what does Mississauga want to be known for? Is it like, the innovation project on the water, a clean community, a green community, a place to live and work, and through clean technology? We need, I believe, something that is the anchor to our thinking. And I think that we need a little bit more of an anchor or hub for all of the incubators so that they can feed off of one another. And yeah, I think we got to stand up and create an event or create a little bit of noise. It tells people what it is we're specifically focused on here.
I agree with you. I really think you need to think about some sort of a hub or an event or both. I was, as you may know, chairman of something called the Mississauga City Summit back a decade ago or so. And we did a bunch of research on clusters. And it was interesting. One of the things that some of the people in the high-tech business and the pharmaceutical business and the biotech business said is that there was no place to actually congregate. There was no place to meet. That if they were in Toronto, they would go to Mars. Or they would go to the Toronto Region Board of Trade, which always had events and a great, lunch restaurant. Or if they were, in the financial services sector, they might go to the Toronto Club or the National Club or the Albany Club. They might go to, the Rotary of Toronto, which always had great attendance, or to the Empire Club or the Canadian Club. But there wasn't anything like that in Mississauga. And the only thing they identified was, it's been renamed now, but the bar at the Delta Meadowvale, which is where a lot of pharmaceutical company people stayed when they traveled internationally to Mississauga.
Yeah.
Do you need a clubhouse? Do you need a hub? Do you need a place to all get together?
Yeah, I think you need a hub, and the hub can be somewhat of a hybrid. Again, I'll go back to Merge, Mississauga Economic Recovery Group, which again, David and Ellen have done a phenomenal job of bringing together CEOs from some of the leading companies across sectors, whether it's tourism or culture and the arts or manufacturing. And it's one of the first, again, in 27 years of having businesses here, I've never really seen something so well built, so well crafted to bring mid and large size companies together for a reason. And Merge is going to go from recovery to resilience, so the Mississauga Economic Resiliency Group. So I think looking forward, it will be a phenomenal challenge to the Merge team and team of CEOs to say, okay, so what is it finally that we can do, to your point, Brian, of making this a hub of thinking around this area or for this type of business, to support everybody from startup through, again, to keep attracting incredible mid and large size international companies to Mississauga.
Ken Tencer, CEO of Spyder Works, chairman of the Mississauga Board of Trade, a student at the International School of Management, DBA, Doctorate in Business program, and a guy that's got his new platform, Say Hi to the Future, which is focused on highlighting the human side of human ingenuity. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for motivating us. I love your line, savage curiosity. I think that's one of the keys. You gotta be curious in life, don't you?
You absolutely do. And again, savage curiosity, it says, it speaks to, I think, who I've been, who our team is and who our clients are. It's not just getting up once in a while and asking a question. It's getting out of bed before the alarm rings and says, yeah, we're going to make a difference today.
That's our show for tonight, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I come to you every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM, or you can stream me online at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videocasts are available on my website, briancrombie.com, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Speakeasy. Thanks for joining us. Good night, everybody.